Welcome to the most expensive, high-stakes game of Tetris ever devised by man, except the blocks are made of aluminum, carry 300 screaming souls each, and travel at 500 miles per hour. This is the Fishbowl. If you're looking for a job with a nice corner office and a view, you found it. The problem is that the view consists entirely of potential disasters waiting to happen. It's 3 a.m. at Hartsfield-Jackson International, the busiest airport in the world, and you're currently surviving on a diet of stale nicotine, 3-day-old donuts, and coffee that has the pH balance of battery acid. Your eyes feel like someone rubbed them with sandpaper, and your brain is vibrating at a frequency that only dogs and other sleep-deprived government employees can hear. Look at that radar screen. Those little green blips, those are called targets. To a normal person, they're just pixels. To you, they're a weight on your chest that never goes away. Each one has a data block attached. Altitude, airspeed, destination. Your job is to make sure those data blocks never overlap. Because when they overlap on the screen, they overlap in the sky. And that's when you get to spend the rest of your life answering questions for the NTSB while the world watches your failure on a loop. We call it the push. It's that magical window between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. where every airline in the Western Hemisphere decides they absolutely must land on your 3 runways at the exact same second. The radio frequency becomes a wall of sound. You're talking so fast your tongue feels like it's going to catch fire. Delta 122, turn left heading 270, maintain 4,000 until established. United 404, heavy, wind 300 at 12, cleared to land, runway 26 right. Cessna 59er, get out of the way before that Boeing eats you. The stress doesn't come from the work itself. It comes from the realization that you are the only thing standing between order and a fireball that can be seen from space. You're managing separation. 5 miles of horizontal space, 1,000 feet of vertical. It sounds like a lot until you realize how fast a jet covers 5 miles. It's a heartbeat, it's a blink, and you're doing this while your coworker is complaining about his alimony payments in your left ear and a pilot with an accent you can't decipher is asking for a weather deviation in your right. Your heart rate is pegged at 110. You haven't blinked in 4 minutes. Your bladder is screaming at you because you've been on the position for 3 hours straight without a break. This is the graveyard shift, where the silence is even more terrifying than the noise, because in the silence, you start to hear the ghosts of every operational error you've ever made. You develop a specific kind of personality here. We're all type A, obsessive-compulsive, arrogant pricks. We have to be. If you doubt yourself for 1 millisecond, you're done. You have to believe you are the smartest person in the room, the sky, and the entire zip code. Pilots, they're just bus drivers with better sunglasses. You are the one who owns the sky. But that arrogance is a mask. Underneath, you're just a guy hoping his STRS system doesn't glitch today. You're a guy who goes home and can't sleep because he's still seeing vectors when he closes his eyes. You're a guy who stares at the ceiling, wondering if he gave that Airbus enough room to avoid the wake turbulence of the 747 in front of it. It's the highest burnout rate in the world for a reason. We don't retire. We just eventually stop vibrating and turn into husks of human beings. You think you've got what it takes? You think because you can fly a drone or you're good at Call of Duty, you can handle the box? Welcome to Oklahoma City. Welcome to the FAA Academy, a place specifically designed to find the crack in your soul and pry it open with a crowbar. They call it the cradle of aviation, but we call it the meat grinder. The washout rate is so high that by the time you reach graduation, you'll look around and half the desks will be empty. The instructors aren't teachers, they're predators. They spent 30 years in the tower, and they can smell fear like a shark smells blood in the water. The Academy starts with the basics, the 7110.65. This is the Air Traffic Controller's Bible. It's a 1,000-page document written in a language that looks like English, but is actually a complex code designed to protect the FAA from lawsuits. You have to memorize it, all of it. If an instructor asks you the specific phrasing for a lineup and wait instruction and you miss one word, you get a demerit. Too many demerits and you're back at your old job at Starbucks before you can say radar contact. But the real fun starts in the RTF, the Radar Training Facility. They put you in a simulator that looks like a 1980s arcade game but costs more than your house. They start you off easy, 2 planes, 5 miles apart. Then they add a third,
then a fourth. Then they start throwing the kitchen sink at you. Suddenly, the weather goes to minimums. An engine fails on a cargo jet. A pilot loses his radio. A flock of geese decides to commit mass suicide in your departure path. The instructors are screaming in your headset, pretending to be stressed out pilots. "Center, I've got smoke in the cockpit. I need to land now. Center, I'm lost. I don't know where I am." You have to sort through the chaos, prioritize the emergencies, and keep the 10 from touching. If you freeze, you fail. If you stutter, you fail. If you let two targets get within 3 miles of each other, the simulator lets out a sound that'll haunt your nightmares for the rest of your life. The conflict alert. It's a piercing, high-pitched squeal that means you just killed 600 people in a digital simulation. When that sound goes off, the instructor just stops the clock, looks at you with pure disgust, and says, "Pack your bags, kid. You're not a controller." And then there's the psychological toll of being a developmental. Once you pass the academy, you're sent to a facility. You're the bottom of the food chain. You're the fresh meat. You spend 2 to 5 years as a trainee with a veteran controller sitting behind you with a dead man switch. They watch every move you make. They critique every word you say. They treat you like you're a danger to society until you prove otherwise. You're working the D side, the guy who handles the paper strips and the coordination, while the R side does the actual talking. You're a glorified secretary with a headset, waiting for your chance to plug in and show you can handle a real push. You'll have days where you go home and cry in your car. You'll have days where you want to quit. But then you'll have that one moment where everything clicks. The radar becomes a dance. The voices become music. You see the solution to a complex traffic problem before it even happens. That's when you realize you're not just a guy with a job. You're a member of the most elite, exhausted, and bitter fraternity on the planet.
Everything we've talked about, the coffee, the training, the arrogance, it's all just preparation for the shift. The one shift that defines your entire career. For most people, it's a Tuesday. Why is it always a Tuesday? The weather in Chicago was standard Midwest hell. We had a line of thunderstorms moving in that looked like a solid wall of red on the next rad. It wasn't just rain, it was the kind of storm that makes pilots forget they're professionals and start sounding like terrified children. I was working the north arrivals. I had 20 planes in a stack circling over a fix in the sky, waiting for a gap in the lightning. The frequency was a mess. "Center, we're picking up heavy ice. Center, we need to deviate 30 miles west. Center, we're low on fuel. We can't hold much longer." You're juggling 20 chainsaws, and then the power goes out. Not the whole power, just the main radar feed. The screen flickered, turned black for 2 seconds, which felt like 2 hours, and then came back up in emergency mode. Half the data blocks were gone. I had 20 planes in a confined space, and I didn't know who was who or where they were going. My heart didn't just beat, it tried to escape through my throat. This is code black in the tower. This is the moment where the washout rate makes sense. All aircraft on this frequency. This is Chicago Center. We have a partial radar failure. All aircraft maintain current heading and altitude. Mark your position now. I had to go back to procedural separation. Old school, World War II style. I had to visualize the entire 3-dimensional sky in my head. Who was at 10,000? Who was at 12,000? Who was the heavy Boeing with the fuel emergency? I started calling them out one by one, my voice as flat and robotic as a machine. Even though my hands were shaking so hard, I had to grip the desk. United 88, squawk ident, confirm altitude. American 12, confirm position. Just as I was getting a handle on it, a mayday crackled through. It was a regional jet, a CRJ-200. "Center, we've been struck by lightning. We've lost our primary flight display. We're hand flying in the soup. We need a vector to the nearest runway now." They were blind. They were in a storm, and I was their only set of eyes. I had to guide them in while keeping 19 other planes from colliding with them. It was like playing chess while someone is throwing rocks at your head. Regional 55, turn left heading 180. I'm going to bring you in for the ILS runway 10 center. You are number 1 for the airport. I cleared a path. I moved the stack out of the way, telling pilots to go to their alternates, ignoring their complaints about missed connections. "Shut up and fly," I wanted to scream, but instead I just said, "Maintain 8,000 for traffic." I watched that little green blip, no data block, just a primary target, moving toward the airfield. Regional 55, you're 3 miles from the marker. Wind is 280 at 25, gusts to 40, cleared to land. The silence that followed was the longest 30 seconds of my life. I couldn't see the runway from the TRACON room. I just had to wait. Finally, the tower controller's voice came over the internal line. Regional 55 is down and clear. Nice work, Center. I didn't cheer. I didn't pump my fist. I just took a deep breath, looked at the remaining 18 planes on my screen, and said, United 88, you're next. Turn left, heading 090. When my shift ended, I walked out into the parking lot. The storm had passed. The sun was coming up. The world looked normal, peaceful, and completely oblivious to the fact that they almost lost 100 people an hour ago. I drove home in total silence. No radio, no music, just the sound of my own breathing. I sat on my couch for 3 hours staring at a wall before I realized I was still holding my car keys. That's the life. You're the hero who never gets a thank you. You're the genius who everyone hates because you're a nagger on the radio. You're the person who ensures that nothing happened today, because in our world, nothing happened is the ultimate victory. So, the next time you're sitting on a plane complaining about a 20-minute delay on the tarmac, just remember, there's a guy in a dark room with blood-eyed eyes and a caffeine trimmer who just saved your life for the 5th time today, and he'd really appreciate it if you'd just shut up and enjoy the peanuts. Welcome to the tower. Stay off my frequency.